So the nose is getting developed from 5 processes from 4 to 8. The first one is frontonasal process, as you see, and the yellow one is maxillary process, pink one is mandibular process. In the frontonasal process, there is two placodes has been placed. The first one is nasal placode, right, and the left. The nasal placode, and below you are seeing a cavity, right, that is future oral cavity stomatolium. Above is lens placode, which is placed further far away. Now the nasal placode has been deeply invaginated behind and created a nasal pitch. So this is your further nostril. While creating a nasal pitch, there is a two prominence that has been appeared in medial and lateral. So this is a medial nasal process, and laterally we have a lateral nasal process. Meanwhile, the maxillary process also getting developed medially and laterally, as you see in the picture. So now we have a nasal placode, imaginated as a nasal pitch. Below you have a stomatolium, future oral cavity covered by a membrane, and sideways we have a maxillary process which has now grown to medially and laterally. So you can see a gap created between the lateral growth and the lateral nasal process. Now I'll show the space that has been created in the lateral growth and the lateral nasal process. There appears a groove. That is your future nasal lacrimal duct, right? In between the lateral nasal prominence and also the lateral growth of maxillary process, there appears a nasal lacrimal duct. Now the maxillary process, which is trying to come medially, forces the two medial nasal placodes to fuse together. It forces, the pressure forces the both to fuse together and form a single unit. That is your intermaxillary segment. Right? From the intermaxillary segment, there are some structures going to get developed. So as for now, nasal placode, nasal pitch, maxillary process, medial and lateral growth, and in between we have a stomatolium, that small cavity, right, future oral cavity. So now we don't have any demarcation between the nose and oral cavity. Now both has been fused and formed the intermaxillary segment. From the intermaxillary segment, there appears three structures. The first one is fylcium, the intermaxillary segment, right? From there is a bridge of the nose, fylcium, and premaxilla, which is a primitive palate. So the secondary palate has to be developed, right? So to know the secondary palate development, you can follow a detailed video which has been uploaded. As for now, I'm telling an overview. Below the nose, we have a stomatolium. Behind the stomatolium, we have a oronasal membrane. After it gets ruptured, the primitive choana has been formed. So between the primitive choana and above the nostril, the parent has to be formed.